Hi, and welcome to another episode of Garmology, a podcast about clothes and stuff. Now, today we are back in the United States again, in New York, and my guest is Peter. Peter, do you want to kick things started with tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Peter Noah. I live in New York City, smack dab in the middle of Union Square. I have been here for approximately 30 years. I grew up in Chicago and Los Angeles, mostly Los Angeles, which is where I attended university at UCLA. Shortly after I graduated from UCLA, I moved to New York City because I was just very tired of the constant battle with traffic in Los Angeles. And I felt that New York would give me kind of a boost in energy and a change of scenery. And I've been here since. My background is originally in graphic design. And I eventually, in the last several years, switched over to product design, which, if you're not familiar with, is UX UI design for apps and websites. And I was working for a tech startup, a very mature tech startup that works in the art world before I got laid off. This was about a little over about 2 years ago. And after I got laid off, I was freelancing. I was trying to be a freelance contractor in the world of visual design. I met up with a friend and I thought, "Hey, let's do something on the side. Let's create a side hustle." And the side hustle we had in mind was creating a YouTube channel. Something along the lines of do you know the YouTuber Daily Dose of Internet, where he just kind of collects random clips from around the internet?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Well, check it out. It's a great channel, and it's always just like 10 minutes, so it's an easy watch, and nothing like violent or horrible. Just kind of funny, wholesome internet meme type stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, that was the idea I proposed to him, and we talked it over. And then he turned to me and said, we shouldn't do that. Actually, that's a really bad idea because the market's saturated with channels like that. We should do a YouTube channel that's focused on your sense of style, because that is not a market that's totally saturated yet. There are very few players in the YouTube space that deal with older perspectives of men's style in the way that you kind of focus on. And at first I was really, really hesitant about doing that because I'm not somebody who's incredibly comfortable on camera. I find it very awkward to see myself and hear myself talk. And actually, even now, when I create a video, these talking head videos, and I push it out there, I won't go back and look at it. I just find it
No, I
too
agree.
too painful to look at, because as you might agree with, hearing your own voice can sometimes sound very awkward, or like seeing yourself on screen can be very awkward. So anyway, I started that. And then the first video I put out was about this trend called corpcore. And that was about 2 years ago, a little over a year and a half ago. And I was really shocked. I thought it would only get maybe a couple hundred views, and it wound up getting like tens of thousands of views, like maybe
Wow.
30,000 views, like right away. So then I thought, okay, maybe there's something here. So I just continued to do it, and some videos got a lot of great reception, and some videos tanked. I have a lot of interests in the design space. So that covers graphic design, product design, fashion, art. And I thought it would be interesting to look at the cross sections of all of these different design genres, or where these things intersect. Because I found that interesting. Like, where does product design, for example, inform fashion? Where does fashion get influenced to the point where it becomes a staple in like men's style permanently? Or where does art influence fashion and then influence like permanent style? Or where does graphic design inform men's style. So all of these intersections I thought were really interesting and really a rich source of content to come up with ideas to draw from. So I started experimenting, and what I found very quickly on were that the more esoteric topics, like what is William Eggleston's influence on street photography, and how does street photography inform fashion? I just made that up. Um, yeah, I don't
I
know.
was
I don't.
nodding sagely as if I understood what you were talking about, but yeah.
Those types of topics, I found that people they just didn't really care about, so it got very, very little traction. Um, when I started doing the things that were a little bit more very focused on style, especially current style, or like things like these are things to not do, or these are things that you get wrong, I found that those types of videos landed a little bit more immediately, and people were receptive to those kinds of topics. But then I thought, these aren't things that I really want to talk about. I'm not a YouTuber who is saying like, "Oh, this is how to wear pants," or "These are the 10 things you should never wear in the 2026 fall season,"
I
or
know exactly what you mean, yeah.
"Here are the top 10 things that you need to buy from Uniqlo for, spring summer." Like, these are not things that I care to talk about.
No.
Um, so that's kind of where I am now. I'm still doing it, about a year and a half out. Um, and I'm at a point where I'm kind of questioning why I'm doing it and what purpose does it serve and who exactly am I serving? This is me taking a step back and looking at the totality of everything I've done and many of the mistakes that I've made, which I would love to get into as well. Um,
Yeah.
and how I fell into those mistakes, or why I wanted to do those videos and those collaborations with various brands. And that's kind of where I am right now. I would say that your feed and your blog have actually been quite influential in terms of me rethinking like what exactly it is that I'm doing. And I think over the last year, I've started asking myself questions, um, like like I said, what is the purpose of what I'm doing? What is that? Can I answer that question? Who is this serving? Like, who is ultimately benefiting from this? If I want to spend my time doing this, I want to make sure that it has some level of influence or impact in a positive way. I don't want it to ultimately be, I don't want to be a voice for a corporation that is looking to further exploit or use people and labor in a very, very negative way.
Now, naturally, I'd like to spend a lot of time now talking about how much I've influenced you and precisely in which way I've influenced you. But let me just run this past you. It's a sort of standard way of how a man discovers Instagram, starts showing off his clothes on Instagram, gains a little popularity, starts getting emails from PR companies wanting to send free stuff, feels a big ego boost, starts posting more, uh, lots of posts advertising brands, starts feeling compelled to post maybe daily, maybe a little uncertain how much these brands are expecting, what level of exposure they're expecting in return for their gifts, because no one ever says what they expect. They'll just send you something and, "I'll do with it what you like, it's a gift." But you do sense that behind those words there lies an expectation, but you're never quite sure what it is. So you keep showing this. It becomes incredibly stressful because you're posting so much now, and then you start questioning, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Sort of roughly.
I mean, you've basically described the last year and a half for me. So when I
So many people going through that trajectory. It's
yeah,
bonkers.
when I first started getting these requests from various agencies and some brands directly, I was incredibly flattered. I thought to myself, wow, like you think that highly of me that I can be a representative for your brand? And I didn't think twice about um, what the brand really stood for or where the goods were being made or anything. I just thought, yeah, of course I'll do this in exchange of a gift. Aesthetically, it fits into my kind of universe, and as long as it does that, then I'm okay with promoting the brand, and I'll do it in a way that is kind of I I tried to be a little bit more organic about it because I wanted it to be successful for not only myself but for the brand. Um, but then I started to realize I had no connection to these brands whatsoever, like personally, spiritually. Um, I found that when I scratched the surface of the brands in terms of like what they make and where it's made and who makes it, there was a level of opacity that I could never get past, and that
Mm.
bothered me. So then what happened most recently is at the start of the year, I decided to take all or most of that content that I had done collaborations with for exchange of goods. I took it
Yeah.
all off. And some of these brands reached out to me and said, well, what happened? Like, why did you take these videos down? Why did you take these posts down? And I didn't feel I had I didn't feel like I was obligated to explain why, like to get deep into the reason why I chose to take these things down. So I simply said, "Yeah, it's not working for me," and I decided to change the way my content is being presented and who I work with.
Which sounds fair.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, there was no time agreed time or anything,
no.
and no specified content. So yeah. So how did they take that? I mean, did it get a bit nippy?
A couple of them were quite aggressive in responding to me and saying there was one brand that I won't name who kept emailing me and said, "We don't understand like why you're choosing to do this. We thought the video was doing really, really well. We got many sales from it. So why would you take this down?"
Yeah.
A couple of them pursued it a little bit more, and in the sense of like, we really want to continue working with you. We hope, maybe we can set up some sort of partnership where there's a revenue split of blah blah blah. And I responded, I'm not interested in this,
Yeah.
like at all.
Do you get any sense that they were getting more out of this than you were?
Oh, 100%. I mean, a point that you made earlier is, I think, something that guys who are coming into this excited by the prospect of getting goods in exchange for like posts.
Yeah.
You might think, one might think, oh, well, creating an Instagram post with me wearing these pants is very easy. And I have a lot of followers and I can do it pretty quickly. It's no sweat off my back. But you have to remember that the the landscape of how advertising works now is very different. And you, the social media influencer, are essentially now the 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 television, or you're the billboard, or you're the reach for the brand. So
Mm.
these brands are sending, this is a guess, but I'm thinking these brands send thousands and thousands of emails to influencers, and they get these email addresses from whatever source they use, and they're hoping that they can reach like maybe 5% of the influencers that they send these emails out to, and those become the channels of their like marketing. So you in effect are becoming a billboard for them. You're doing them much more of a service than they're doing for you by giving you a pair of pants. That's nothing. that inequality of what word am I trying to say here? There's an inequality there. There's a lack of a balance of payment, of fairness, and that bothers me.
Mm. There's also a lack of transparency about what is really going on.
Yeah,
Uh,
the lack of transparency really bothers me as well.
so the fact that you are actually advertising something, but you're kind of not really saying it. But,
Ye- Yeah.
hmm, yeah, I've been pretty. One of the things that gets me is that it's very easy to become an influencer now because you can buy followers, which doesn't cost all that much, and no one really cares about that. Seemingly, I've discussed this with PR agencies and brands, and it's like, nah, it doesn't matter. Uh, so they're not even getting their money's worth. So it's sort of fraudulent that way as well. But well, I mean, whatever.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember a world where we didn't have phones, we didn't have social media, um, and advertising was done through a very kind of direct and clean, not clean, but like in a clean manner where you understood what you were looking at. You understood that it was an ad.
Yeah.
Um, you understood it was a television commercial, like whatever. But nowadays, television is who watches television anymore? Everyone watches YouTube. Everyone doom scrolls on Instagram, and all of these messages come at us with very, very little. There's no clarity in terms of what is an ad or what isn't an ad. Um, so that bothers me.
And of course, now that we've got big data analyzing everything we do online and tailoring ads to us, I mean, is it a wonder people buy shit? You don't have a chance, really.
No, you don't. Um, the amount of information that we get and the amount of advertising that we get is, I mean, there are some times where I'm so overwhelmed that I have to leave my phone at home. I have to do this thing where I just go to the park and I don't do anything and just stare out into space, even for like 10 minutes, because
Mm,
I'm just so overwhelmed by how much information that we have to process. And I don't think it's good.
mm. No, it's definitely not. Yet, you did start your YouTube channel, your Instagram, and your TikTok. Now, I was about to say, when you did your analysis of YouTube and thought you'd do something in menswear. Now, obviously, the menswear scene on YouTube is pretty massive. I feel quite overwhelmed when I see all the guys talking about pants and whatever, or their watches, or but guys like us who are slightly above average age for this, not so much happening there, is there? So that was actually well spotted that there was space available there.
I think I think the reason why there is space in our niche is because a lot of men our age do not care about this genre, this topic.
Hmm.
And I think the reason why they don't care is because I think something happens as you get older, especially in your 50s. You start to care less and less about what other people think of you. And then
Hmm.
you start just dressing like whatever. I'm just going to pull on these plastic pants and these running shoes and call it a day. And I'm going to just walk down the streets and do my thing. And like, I don't care what anybody thinks.
In some ways, incredibly liberating.
In some ways, incredibly liberating. But then the opposite of that is
Hmm.
that you become, what's the word? You become sort of like a stereotype of an old man.
Yeah.
You kind of become what young people expect you to be. This kind of um, stereotype of an older person who doesn't care about what they're wearing. You just want to be comfortable.
I think the kids call it unk now. You're unk,
I've been,
apparently.
I've been called that many, many times in comments.
Now you know.
But the thing is, I have always, and the reason why I started this YouTube channel is because I have always been interested in this, even at a very, very young age, even in my teens. I was very, very drawn to specific types of clothing, specific looks. And I never quite articulated that throughout my entire life, but it's always been consistent, always. Certain genres really appealed to me. Certain styles always appealed to me. And I've veered off those paths every now and then, every few years in my 20s and 30s. I experimented with different things. And now I'm at a place where I'm understanding all of those influences and how they come together in a way that I can now feel comfortable with and expressing myself in a way that's true to me and really reflects like my entire history and my upbringing. And the reason why that's very important to me is because I have always believed that the way you dress is a form of communication because we live in a society and we communicate with each other in sometimes not verbal ways. And to acknowledge that clothing and the way we present ourselves is a form of how we tell other people, hey, this is what I'm about, this is who I am, and this is your first kind of glance or your first bit of conversation with me. And if this resonates with you, maybe you and I can have a further conversation so we can talk about why. And I can ask you questions about your look, and you can ask questions about my look and who my favorite brands are, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and that's a realization that I only came to like maybe in the last 10 years for kind of articulating what it is about my style that really works for me and how I can express it in a way that's easy, that I don't have to think hard about it and not have to ask influencers on Instagram like, what should my where should my belt lie or where should my shoulders lie or whatever. Like I know, and for myself, and I don't need to ask people those questions anymore.
Hmm, interesting. I mean, for me, it was a bit different. I think I was a more unk type person in my 20s and 30s,
What do you mean by
late
that?
20s. Hmm?
What do you mean by you were an unk type in your 20s and 30s?
Well, I was a father very young. My daughter was born when I was 21, and I had another three sons after that. So my young life was very much taken up by being a dad, and my interest in clothes was pretty much non-existent in those years.
Hmm.
I think for many years sort of my pride in clothes was wearing shorts for the longest possible season. Which, when you're living in the far north of Norway, where it's not exactly warm most of the time, becomes kind of a sort of test of manlyhood, I suppose, or something like that. But then, some 17 years ago, I kind of restarted my life and restarted my interest in myself. Really, um, it was a chance to move, start something new work-wise, get fit. I mean, all the classic midlife crisis moves, but also then take an interest in clothes. So I came to that sort of early mid 40s, really.
Was there a specific moment or any kind of incident that happened to you that made you really think about this?
Well, getting divorced and moving definitely had a major impact there. But I mean, I've always been a person that when I'm interested in something, I want other people to know about it. As a teenager, I was doing local radio and I was importing records from England. So I had to share this fantastic new music with everyone who lived up in this Arctic part of Norway. Um, so when I got an interest in clothes, I mean, I started blogging about it. I mean, I was sure everyone wanted to know more about this. Of course, I wasn't unique in that, but I mean, even then, I was probably a bit older than a lot of the guys, and I did have the Norwegian perspective on it. I was more into tweed and stuff. I mean, back then, 15 years ago, fantastic menswear, early selvage denim days, and I mean, there was just so much good stuff. And I mean, kind of carried on a bit, I guess. I mean, like for guys like us, all the best music was made in the 80s,
Mhm.
possibly 90s a bit, but then again, all the best clothes were made in the 2010s. And that's something what that you also get into when you talk about all these guys doing their sort of your 10 ways you have to wear your barber jacket or whatever. I mean, there isn't a lot of new stuff actually really coming along. It's basically just looping round and round. So you'll have all the Ivy guys doing their ultimate guide to Ivy. Yeah, we've seen that 40 times before, guys. Um, so, like you, find what works for you, find the bits that you can put together, and then make it into what you like. And that's work. That takes time, especially when you're being influenced all the time by other guys you see on Instagram, and you think, "Oh, yes, those olden shoes. Oh, I must have a pair of those." Uh, which makes me think about all these menswear grail items that people feel that they have to have, but they're the sort of things where you buy them, you've got it, and then you realize that it was just the buying that was the important bit. And once you've got it, you're not really that bothered.
Yeah, that's that's a big problem in this space. I think there's this fight to try to get the attention of people in different niches. Maybe you're somebody who's easily influenced and you're kind of in the streetwear space. But then you see another influencer who tells you, well, heritage fashion has this, I don't know, quality about it that you might be interested in. Here's how to mix
Yeah.
streetwear and heritage. So there's this constant feeling of like you're missing out on something, and then
Oh, yeah.
you want to be pulled. They're trying to pull you into like their specific niches. Um, I feel like in menswear and fashion in general, people tend to gravitate towards specific niches of style, and we perpetuate this information. And the brands give you the stuff to perpetuate this information. And you want to try to get as many people into that loop of information as possible. It's something that I'm very kind of conscious of now is
Mm.
am I perpetuating the same information that all the other people in my space are perpetuating? Am I introducing anything new? Um, and what's the value of like what it is that I'm promoting here? Going back to like what I was saying earlier, I'm taking a step back and trying to understand what is the benefit of the information that I'm putting out there.
Yeah. And how will it be received? I mean, how will it influence other people? It's like, say, these pants will change your life. You must have them. And then you realize that, wow, putting that out there, you've got 10,000 guys who's going to be buying these pants. And you start thinking, was that what I wanted to set into the world? Hmm.
Yeah. And how is that actually benefiting you? Because if you're not like somebody who has a million followers and you're getting, you know, tens of thousands of dollars every month on a pair of pants that you pushed, um, what is that value for you? It's certainly valuable for the brand because the brand is getting exposure and advertising basically for free. Um, so the thing that I've been thinking about lately is there information that I can put out there that is actually valuable, that
Yeah.
is actually useful to somebody who has, I don't know, a brain to think with, or can think about this space a little bit more. intentionally. That's a word I use a lot.
Mm.
Instead of just saying, "Oh, I want that, and so I'm going to buy it online, or I'm going to run to the store and buy it." Um, but I am right now kind of wondering what the appetite for that kind of information is and what people are able to stomach. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. Well, I mean, I think you've sort of kind of had an answer to that when you realise that people want short and snappy guides to stuff they can buy.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, do they want more about how to make your clothes fit better, how to repair stuff, how to? I mean, what is a good garment? I've got that on my list here a bit further down, which I wanted to get to at some point. But yeah, it's a machine and it operates on its own, and the machine knows what it wants, and that's what it pushes out to everyone else. I mean, maybe if you made content that was more intentional and conscious, it would be buried.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I'm concerned about. And is that bad? Maybe it's not bad because then I get to do what it is that I think is important to do for me.
I mean, we there's so much talk about the algorithms,
Yes.
and the algorithms have so much to answer for. And but I do see that if you manage to traverse algorithms, say move into the sustainable fashion space, I mean, there's a whole bubble there doing their stuff. If you move into the heritage wear space or sportswear or whatever, I mean, everyone has this worldview in their little bubble. So I think being able to reach or make content or speak to people in other algorithms might be hard. And I do notice that if you're trying to put the wrong sort of content into the bubble you are in, it doesn't tend to get noticed that much.
Hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't know anything about how these algorithms are coded or what the trick is to try to cross over or maybe break into two different types
Probably
of
to make an
code.
entirely new account and start from scratch.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, those algorithms are generally speaking not our friends. They
Yeah.
are coded so that we see more of the stuff that will influence us and make us probably buy more or get more agitated and upset about things. Oh,
Yeah.
lordy, lordy.
That we don't need to buy, I mean, all of this, by the way, is my opinion. I'm not,
Mm.
none of it is objective fact. Well, some of it is, but we don't need to. I don't think we need to buy more stuff. Absolutely not.
We certainly don't need to own more stuff. I
No.
mean, I do like buying the occasional bits, but I'm also selling bits out the other end because I'm almost 59. I realize that I have more clothes already than I can ever manage to use up. So I don't actually need more, but I might like something else and I can say goodbye to some other bits. And I think that's okay.
No, that's absolutely okay because you're setting limits. You're making sure that what you're putting out or putting out of your closet is finding another home somewhere else. You're not contributing to the global pollution that is happening right now. We consume way more clothes than we can possibly ever wear in our lifetimes. And I think younger people don't understand that. They don't like attach what their purchasing decisions are having the kind of impact it is on the rest of the world. And I think that's something that I'm currently really quite interested in and wanting to learn more about is the supply chain of clothes and how we're so um, removed from the reality of what actually happens in order to get that $20 t-shirt into your hands
Mm.
from whatever retailer you're going to. Yeah.
But this is definitely something I've been looking at closely for years now. So I mean, I have no illusions any longer with regards to this. And it just strikes me now that, I mean, by buying more stuff, we are actually allowing brands and makers to make more stuff.
We
So
not
if
only allow them, we, in effect, our purchasing decisions encourage it.
mm,
It encourages this overproduction, these cycles of replacing what is already on the shelves because the brands are discovering that, oh, this shirt didn't really sell that well, and then this shirt sold better. So now we're going to remove all these shirts right now and turn it into, I don't know, garbage or landfill, and we're going to replace it with these other shirts that we are convinced will sell better. So like that kind of attitude and that kind of thinking benefits the company in the sense that like we'll make more money and this will encourage people to buy more from us when in reality the consumer didn't need to buy it in the first place.
mm. Uh, Suddenly, I don't know why, but I came to think about white T-shirts and the guy in the Bear TV series,
Oh,
and how his T-shirt became kind of a global phenomena, way beyond what it deserved. Um, but again, I mean, people get so charmed by the guy wearing it that they, I mean, who could even tell what T-shirt he was wearing?
right.
But it just shows how massively influenced otherwise sane people can be because it suddenly becomes a major global topic.
Yes. Is that still a topic?
I'm sure there are people in the heritage wear subreddit who are still banging on about it. They are very hugely inquisitive. I mean, it was a Mertz T-shirt, I think
Yeah.
they finally found out. But I mean, the number of brands claiming it was theirs was also kind of cringe.
Yeah, it's a white t-shirt.
It is. And if you want your white T-shirt to look better, well, you're going to have to hit the gym because
Yeah.
a T-shirt can only do so much.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things we had talked about that we would talk about, how older men are kind of invisible,
Yes.
which I guess is back down to the sort of unk thing and not making an effort and so forth. But older women, should we say mature women, women of a certain age, they never let standards slip.
That's true. I feel like older women have a space for this kind of expression of style. I don't know if you're familiar with Iris Apfel. She is a
No, names
I
rings a
forget
slight bell.
what her claim to fame was, but she, as an older woman, dressed very, very, very uniquely. Huge glasses, huge jewelry, very, very loud statement like dresses and outfits. Um, un- Unmistakably Iris Apfel if you were to see her on the streets when she was alive. And there's this whole world of I think there's a blog called Advanced Style, which is
Okay.
about elder women who don't give a shit anymore and they're just going to dress how they want to dress. And then they're perceived by younger people as being this like kind of rogue style person, right? Like, oh my God, like you look so amazing. You look great. How wonderful that you dress in this like very, very um I don't know, loud and proud kind of way.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like there's any equivalent in the men's style space, especially for older men. I'm not aware of it.
I think it might be slightly regional that you'll find men in Italy who are more daring,
Mm.
but I think sort of generally speaking, your point is right. I mean, you do see older men as well who I would say look well dressed, not necessarily by any sort of TikTok standard. This is how you should look good if you're 78 plus. 5 points or something like that. But I think it has to do with the fact that they have clothes which they have accumulated over time, and they like them, and they put them together, and they look comfortable, and they're not following any sort of trend or advice or anything. It's just that after many, many years, this is what feels good.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm trying to get to with myself,
Mm.
to develop a wardrobe that is truly reflective of clothes that make me feel good, that I feel look good on me, that I'm very comfortable wearing, and that I don't have a problem kind of choosing from and putting together looks.
Mm.
Um, I think I'm kind of midway along that journey. And I think that's very different from what I would describe as like a peacocking kind of man who doesn't maybe know what he's doing and just puts crazy looks together. And I see this on the street all the time in New York, where,
Okay.
because I mean, I live in a very densely populated area, and every time I step out, it's just like hundreds and hundreds of people jostling for space on the sidewalk. And every so often, you'll see a guy who's dressed like, what are you wearing? Like, what is this? It's very insane looking, but okay, you do you. And I think this kind of effort to, and these are older men, there's an effort
Okay.
to try to look not invisible, to try to stand out, because I don't feel like the fashion industry, most brands don't cater to older men. They're not creating clothes or designs that I think older men are the target audience for. I think they're younger people or maybe more of a general audience. So I think it's a little bit tougher for older men compared to women, because older women, because I think older women or women in general, I think have a lot more variety in terms of the types of garments that they can choose from and the different styles and varieties of colors and patterns and textures. The men's space is not quite as diverse in terms of their offerings for clothes. So I think there's this kind of desire, this is just a guess, a desire to try to stand out in a way that will not make an older man feel like an old man. And sometimes it works, but a lot of times what I see is that it doesn't work.
Mm.
And I wonder if it's because that guy who looks a little bit ridiculous is on the same path that I am on, which is trying to figure out like, what is my style and how do I identify it? How do I find out what's comfortable for me, what's comfortable on my body, so I can go out and wear it and not feel invisible, and also not feel like I'm a clown. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I had an experience just last week which fits right into this. I was going to a concert in Oslo with a very young American band, Joey Valence and Bray, very brash, loud hip hop. And I found myself walking along the street on a Friday evening, loads of people around. I was all on my own. I was wearing full engineered garments, pockets everywhere. And I felt so out of place. I felt like people could see that. Oh man, look at that guy! Oh, ridiculous! All those pockets and shit. What's he trying to? Oh, and it was such a weird feeling. And just in that moment, I felt, oh, I wish I'd worn something civilian, something non-remarkable that no one would have noticed me at all. If I'd been with my wife or a friend or something, I probably would have felt pretty cool because I know I was wearing some fire stuff. But on my own there, oh god, I felt terrible, and it was very strange.
Well, context is everything, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
can be.
So I mean, we often get compliments when we're out in town people say, "Oh man, you look cool," and I think, yes, validated. Um, but yeah, I mean, that guy you saw who's inadvertently or not peacocking. I mean, yeah, he might be trying out some new stuff and to see what the response was like. I mean, he might have mental health issues. I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
But I mean, that's one of the things that when we're out and about, we constantly think other people are judging us, that everyone's noticing us and paying attention. And I think everyone, or most people at least, have this fear of being judged. But really, we're so busy being aware of this that we're not actually judging other people that much. Most people don't care what other people are wearing.
That's true.
So so maybe we're overthinking it, and I mean, I tend to dress for my own pleasure. If someone else thinks I look okay, then that's good. But I mean, if you're all the time dressing for everyone else, that's making it very difficult for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's dressing to recede or dressing to blend in versus dressing to stay true to your style if you're able to identify your style. And I think for me that's the goal is to understand my style well enough that I understand which brands work for me and I can put together an outfit without thinking very hard about it and I won't recede because my looks are unique on some level and I won't stand out too much because what I'm wearing isn't terribly provocative.
Mm.
I had a recent, the designer Tom Brown.
Not very big on this side of the Atlantic, I think, but I am sort of aware through menswear
Yeah,
circles. He likes to make trousers a bit on the short side.
yeah. Everything's shrunken. Everything looks
Uh,
like you're like a schoolboy.
yeah.
The dress short, the high socks.
I mean, on some level, it seems really cool, but would I wear it? Maybe not.
So I did go through a phase where I was wearing I acquired like a base level what I would call a uniform from Tom Brown.
Mhm.
All gray suiting stuff. Gray
Okay.
gray jackets, gray pants, even shorts in gray suiting material,
Uh,
high socks, brogues. And it all works together. It's like a system. And it's all very, very smart looking in the sense that when you put on a Tom Brown outfit, it's you look pulled together, you look very neat.
mhm.
Um, but the
I
thing
sense there's
is,
a but coming here, but
it's very, very like there's no mistake when you're wearing this on the streets of New York that you're wearing Tom Brown. It's
hmm,
very, very calling attention to yourself in a very, very obvious way because of the way the clothes are cut. Um, and the reason why I bring this up is because when I was working at the startup, I would wear this every single day, some variation of it, because it allowed me to free myself from having to think about what I put on my body. And I knew that I would look very, very pulled together,
yeah.
professional, and like I took myself very seriously. Um, But I realize now, having been out of the corporate workspace for a couple of years, that it drew attention to myself in not quite the right way that I wanted to draw attention to myself. Um,
Okay.
it drew attention to me in a kind of peacocky way, in a kind of like, look at me because I'm so stylish or because I have these clothes on and the cuts are very interesting and not normal.
Yeah.
And it wasn't being true to who I was about. It was me being a billboard for this brand. I didn't realize that at the time,
No.
but
That's a good trajectory to from where you started there to actually seeing it for what it might actually be.
yeah. And that's a very different experience that I have with brands compared to a brand like Engineered Garments, which I'm a huge fan of. Um, I feel like those clothes are designed to outlast every season, timeless in the sense that it's a unique articulation of the brand's visual language, and that it kind of seamlessly fits into so many different men's wardrobes in a way that is simultaneously meaningful to individual styles, but also doesn't call attention to itself in like the wrong way. Flattering cuts, um, pretty neutral colors consistently season after season. The same shapes appear again and again and again, with subtle variations. But this is to me the hallmark of a brand that is like very reliable and built for the long term, as opposed to fashion, which is not built for the long term and designed to make you constantly want more different things season after season.
I have an idea there, and it has to do with how many designers are working on something. And there's an analog in the car world. We look back to cars from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and all these beautiful, beautiful designs. And they were all designed by one person, did the entire car. Whereas today's cars, you'll find that, oh, you've got Jerry on the rear headlight, you've got her doing the door, doing the interior, and it's all just a mishmash of different designers. And Engineered Garments is kind of the same because Daiki Suzuki was doing it, I think, mainly on his own, or at least directing it for years and years and years until last season. But most fashion brands, you have a whole team, loads of people working on everything, so you don't get that coherence. Might be a wild idea, but it struck me that if one person is designing, then you'll get something that is all that one person's idea.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like brands that to me are very successful are the ones that have very bulletproof vocabulary of how they articulate their like house codes or their unique view on clothing.
Mhm.
And I don't think there are a lot of brands like that.
No, I mean, there are probably a few in the menswear space and a few in women's wear,
Mhm.
but that means you're probably not thinking as much about pushing volume as you are about making quality items. Because if your main goal is to to sell loads, you don't have the time or inclination to make really nice things.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I
yeah,
think another brand that I think is has its codes and its vocabulary very, very well articulated is Ralph Lauren.
I was afraid you'd say that.
No, I'm not saying that um I mean, okay, let me put it this way. I think that's a very, very successful company. I understand why so many men in the menswear space love Ralph Lauren. And I think that company has done an incredible job of figuring out like this is the style that we put out. It's going to be consistent season after season after season. We're going to style it this particular way, and it's like it's probably to them, to that company, it's science at this point in
Mm,
in how exact it is. Um, but I all the Ralph Lauren that I have, by the way, and it's not a ton. It's secondhand. I acquired it through secondhand means. Um, but this kind of blind devotion to that brand, I think, is a little bit problematic. Going back to the sourcing and the supply chain transparency. So when I started looking into that for that specific brand, I was stymied multiple times in ways that I could not figure out or understand. So yeah, but going back to what we were talking about, it is a brand that I think has really, really honed the vocabulary of what they're trying to say from a style perspective down to a science.
Mm. Well, I mean, they are a huge brand selling a complete lifestyle,
Yeah.
um, a lifestyle that for many people seems very attractive, but they are also super honed, as you say, at what they do. So production, design, everything is just super streamlined and everything. I mean, I don't think there's a beating heart in the company at all, but that's my impression of it.
Yeah. It's they've done the whole aspirational thing so well and for so many years that I can understand why it's so appealing.
It's the sort of lazy man's brand because you know that you won't go wrong.
Yeah.
There's no you're not going to fall flat on your face if you dress head to toe in Ralph Lauren. The branding is comfortably in place, and people will see that you've made a good lifestyle choice and so forth. Yeah, I think I have one shirt, but I haven't used it in ages. But it's not a. I mean, they sell tons of it over here as well. But
Yeah.
no, no judgment. But it does sell well in the second-hand market as well. So it's I mean it's well respected. Um, yeah. Any other brands? I mean, we've mentioned there's a chasm between Ralph Lauren and Engineered Garments, isn't there?
Another brand, it's a luxury brand that I have a great amount of respect for is Rick Owens. Are you familiar with Rick Owens?
Only the really weird photos I see, and I realize that I mean, there's no way I'd be wearing any of it.
Yeah, that is a brand that I feel has carved out its own space in luxury fashion. It's a very unique perspective of what luxury fashion could be, not only from like just the garments themselves, but the whole aesthetic. And I feel like it's a brand that never ever veers off that path. And
Mm,
that level of dedication for people who love Rick Owens, I think, is the reason why it has the fan base that it does. Um, it's not easily copied. For example, you can't go to the department store and expect to find anything that even resembles closely
mm,
anything close to what a Rick Owens garment might look like. So I do respect brands that have a very unique perspective and are true to their vision. Um, that particular brand is just not for me.
yeah. But you can tell he doesn't compromise. He's doing his thing. He's not influenced by others. And I mean, yes, I'm all for that. I'm all for Tom Brown making his schoolboy outfits and doing his thing. You've got guys like John Alexander Skelton in the UK who make stuff. Him and Paul Harding really are sort of within the same thing. I
Hmm.
mean, Victorian chimney sweep outfits, and I mean, brilliant. Would I wear them? Maybe, but I mean, they're things that aren't led just by what is the current fashion, which tends to be really not that innovative or special or different. So it is fun finding the sort of truly independent thinkers.
I think I think that's in the luxury fashion space. I think that's part of why there are so many designers rotating through these houses as creative directors is because they're trying to remain relevant and fresh.
Mm,
And by injecting the house, the label with a designer who is at this other label is kind of one way to keep people talking about the brand, as opposed to a brand like Engineered Garments, where it's had one creative director for the entire lifespan of the brand.
mm,
And they still do well.
mm.
They don't need that level of publicity.
I have to say that from this season with the two new designers, I am a little worried.
It was a little bit what's the word?
it wasn't as sober as it has been
Yeah,
until now.
for sure.
And I've discussed this with so many people. I think their fabrics are really not developing in the right direction now.
Yeah, a couple of pieces that I've bought recently have worn in a way that I was surprised by.
Okay, was these the pieces you bought in Japan?
No, these were pieces that I bought in New York over the last couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, but I don't know. Maybe that's a production issue. Maybe it's I don't know. I don't know what to attribute that to.
I think it's safe to say that their fabrics were better some years ago. I mean, now there's a lot of very mixed fiber fabrics.
Hmm.
Their wool is full of nylon or polyester, and I mean, some of these recent corduroys haven't been very strong. I mean, the prices are more enthusiastic than ever, but it just isn't as good, which is a shame because it's been such a reliable staple brand.
Yeah,
But then again, everything is becoming increasingly expensive now, so it is a bit tricky.
that's true. I feel like in general, the cost of clothing for like kind of middle tier has remained relatively consistent, which is strange and disturbing if you think about how most prices of most things have become much higher. So that to me leads me to believe that these companies produce more clothes, we're buying more, and the cost of the clothing is kind of the same. How are they doing this?
By saving money on the fabrics is one thing, maybe increasing volume.
Cheaper
But
labor,
but
probably.
I mean, it's like engineered garments is still made in New York, so and I think they basically have their own factory. So I don't know. I mean, it's really only fabric you could make savings on,
True.
or maybe simplify construction so you save time. But engineered garments has definitely increased a lot in price recently.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, some of the this season stuff was quite ludicrously expensive.
I mean,
So,
it is not cheap to manufacture garments in the United States, especially with fair labor laws. For people to make minimum wage constructing garments in New York City is, I'm still kind of blown away that that happens at all.
mm. Well, I mean, there's a lot of talk about the garment factories in Los Angeles, which you'd think would be pretty regulated and sorted. But I mean, I hear rumors of sweatshops there, and it's not necessarily a uniquely good thing.
No,
So,
not at all. I think there's a common misperception of made in US as being some marker of quality or heritage,
mm,
but you can't guarantee that at all unless you dig a little further and you understand, well, where was it made in the US and who are the workers who were employed to make it in the US?
or even is it made in the US, as you and I would understand, made in US, not just shipped to the US with a print and sew a
Right.
label on it. I
Yeah.
mean, you've got made in UK can be equally meaningless because there's sweatshops there. You have made in Italy, where they've found huge fabrics run by Chinese companies,
Yep.
which are basically sweatshops in Italy. I mean, there's just no illusions anymore, is there? Just can't be naive about these things.
Did you, by the way, you know about this Everlane company that was bought out recently by
Just
Shane?
brought up by Shein, yeah.
I find what I found so interesting about that story is I never bought anything by Everlane, but I remember when it had its kind of heyday, and I remember their big thing was supply chain transparency. It was a
Mm.
huge thing on their website. Like, we monitor the factories, we understand who the workers are. There's no kind of subcontracting that happens. It was like a huge section of their website, and I wonder if that interest in that kind of supply chain transparency has disappeared and people just don't care anymore. Because when I started digging into a little bit of like, why are these labels so misleading and why is this information just not available anywhere? Is it because people just don't care anymore and they just want to buy more clothes?
I think the answer to that is mostly yes. People would like their clothes to be ethically made and everything transparent and so forth. But I see it a lot in the heritage wear subreddit on Reddit. Every time there's a possibility for, say, t-shirts or fatigues, you have some Chinese suppliers who are incredibly cheap.
Yeah.
But then you know all the problems with cotton supply in China with the indigenous people who are working as slaves in factories there and so forth. And you wonder, why is that why they can make a t-shirt for $10? And why are people then saying they want to buy that instead of something that you know comes from a reputable supplier? Well, I mean, it comes down to a bargain will always trump everything else, I think.
I wonder though if we're having this conversation and other people have this conversation, could it reach a point where you can no longer ignore the um, the disconcerting reality of these questions and the lack of answers that compel people to then have a second thought before they purchase that $10 garment from wherever.
Well, for one thing is that we're inside our little bubble again. And the other thing is that you get into such kind of nasty discussions about these things because if you point out that the $10 t-shirt is probably made in a sweatshop by slaves, basically, then suddenly you're the bad guy, casting aspersions and looking down upon people who maybe can't afford more than the $10 shirt, and it gets the conversation becomes very tricky.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, of coming across as like wagging my finger at somebody and saying like, how can you support this? You should have like better ethics, et cetera, et cetera. And like nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to be called like a bad person. Um, but I think there's value in however it's delivered or however it's shared in having this conversation with people who care about clothing.
Hmm. I mean, a lot of it is sort of misjudged social justice, like the conversation around thrifting, where some say that you shouldn't go thrifting if you actually can afford to buy full price, full retail new clothes, or you shouldn't be reselling thrifted clothes. And I mean, the stances on this are totally immobile, and there will never be any agreement reached. So, I mean, I'd love to see everyone buy much less clothes and buy it from reputable places that pay their workers. But I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, you see the same thing in the boot world now. Um, I mean, just as an aside, I remember when I first started out, a pair of Red Wings was kind of the high end. That was it was a solid buy, and I think they were around $250 at the time. Now, guys want boots costing $1,000 plus, and
Yeah.
they have to be in that exact leather from that exact maker. Blah blah blah. Until you discover the guys in is it Indonesia, tiny little makers who will make basically the same boot for half the money, and then everyone's off to Indonesia to buy them. So that illustrates the sort of price thing. Everything else will be invalid as soon as you get it for half the price.
Yeah. That's a that's a not a great situation to be in. Um, yeah, it's a really difficult topic to kind of address. to
And
try
it's
to.
so bleak and it's so depressing. We want to talk about fun stuff.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about something more fun.
Like influencer marketing. Do
Um,
you wear a lot of clothes with visible branding on them?
not anymore. um, I used to. Well, polo is not heavily branded, but it can't. It is very apparent that you're wearing a button-down Oxford cloth with a polo logo on it.
It's
Um,
it's subtle, but also totally not subtle.
yeah, yeah, that's true. I A lot of the brands that I wear will not have visible branding on them. If they do have a brand um, printed on the item, it needs to be small. I won't wear something like, for example, a sweatshirt that says Polo Ralph Lauren, for example. I would never wear anything like that, or
Everlane.
carry a big tote bag that says whatever it needs to say. Like, I understand that we do this because it's social signaling or status signaling, but
Mm.
I also don't want to give brands another billboard to sell themselves more. I think my opinion is the brand needs to sell itself on the quality of the product or its style or, the I don't know, the integrity of how it operates, as opposed to just having people wear the brand because it's some sort of signal to other people that they're fancy or they're rich or what have you. So I try to avoid it as much as possible. I'm assuming you do too.
I barely have anything with a visible label on, and it's not actually that conscious. I think that I will hold up a garment and see whether they have a label on it. But I think it's that the sort of brands I like just naturally don't put labels on the outside.
Yeah.
But as you, I don't appreciate advertising. I don't need to signal my purchases in that sort of way. So I would naturally avoid buying obviously labeled goods. Yeah.
It's That's a fascinating topic for me in and of itself, is this kind of desire to carry things or wear things that very loudly display where you bought them from. Um, I I work in a co-working space, which
Mhm.
is downtown by Chinatown on Canal Street, and there is quite an active market for counterfeit goods
Yeah.
in terms of purses, wallets, bags, etc. I mean, and when I say active, like you can't even walk down the street without, the vendors bargaining with the tourists who are buying this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating to me what's happening because you're not buying the legitimate goods, and by legitimate I mean not counterfeit, because you can't afford it or you refuse to pay that amount of money for this purse, and you're supporting probably very, very poor working conditions for the people who have to make these goods. Um, and also, it's illegal. So, what's the thinking there? In terms
There's a lot of negatives there.
There's a lot of negatives here. Sorry, I live near a hospital, so I don't know if you can hear that.
Oh, that's what I expect no less from New York.
So there's a lot of kind of unspoken negatives there that these folks who are buying these goods, these counterfeit goods, are just totally bypassing in order to have an item that displays a Louis Vuitton logo, for example. That to me is crazy.
It is. I came across something slightly similar recently with the new Ferrari Luce electric vehicle, which, if you like cars, looks terrible compared to almost every other Ferrari ever made, but it's still $500,000. And the car guys are up in arms about how Ferrari could make such an ugly, hideous car that totally breaks the mold for what Ferrari make. But my thinking is you have to look upon it more like a May Birkin bag, where it's not the utility or look of the bag you're buying. It's the fact that you're showing everyone else that you can afford to buy that.
Right.
And I think maybe at some level, the fake bags are also trying to show people that they could afford it, but really only the people who don't know things well enough to see that it's not actually real. But I mean, some of these fake bags are awfully close replicas, so you might
Oh,
actually
yeah.
kid some people. But
In fact, I saw a mini documentary recently where they determined that the quality of the fake bags is like almost exactly the same as the quality of the real bag because they've gotten so good at making these so believable and passable. But again, to your point, it's crazy like that you put that much value into an object to signal to other people around you that you can you're a part of the club,
mm,
that you would go to that level of effort to use that as some sort of representation of who you are.
mm.
That's disturbing to me.
But is it disturbing because it's mostly women's luggage? Would it have been the same if you had a pair of, say, fake handmade leather boots that look just like the $1,500 boots made by some artisan in California?
That's interesting. That's an interesting question, actually, because I know that there are heritage enthusiasts who are divided on that kind of provenance of the
Mm,
boot. I think there are guys who are interested in that provenance as much as the boot itself
yeah.
and would not care to put on boots that were made in China by whoever in some unknown factory by unknown workers. Um, so that background of the boot itself becomes kind of representative of like the Birkin in the sense that like he can walk around in these boots and should anybody stop him and say, "Hey, where are those boots from?" He can proudly say, "Oh, these boots were handmade by artisans in California and they cost $1,500."
And I have a laminated receipt.
Yeah. Let me show you. Here it is in my wallet. And that
Yeah,
in and of itself becomes like a social status signaler.
yeah. I'm incredibly torn on this because for me, Yucatan boots, I want the made in Maine versions. That for me is part of what makes them desirable. But I totally lost my train of thought there. I was going to mention Yucatan, but then I flaked out. So I'm not sure where I was going there. But I mean, if they make them in Italy or China or whatever, I mean, the boots are exactly the same, but not made in the original factory, and then maybe not so interesting.
So you don't care
But
if
I also know that the sort of guys who go on and on about shinky horse butt leather and yada yada are among the most boring guys you'll ever meet.
Yeah, that's true. I occupy the style space more, and that's what my whole thing has been about.
Mm.
Do you know the guy Nick English from Stridewise?
I see you make a few videos with
Yeah.
him. I don't really know him.
He's very, very interested in like the very particular details about how things are made, the materials. He's more of that kind of granular detail of this world.
Mm.
Whereas I lean a bit more toward like putting the looks together and understanding why they work or like what the history behind a certain aspect of design of a garment might be. So the more I spend time in this space, the more I'm learning about these particular details about where they're made or what the materials are. So I'm in a very much learning process about all of that. And I think that's why I am in the space that I'm occupying right now in terms of my headspace. The more I learned, the more either disappointed I am in the industry as a whole in terms
Right.
of its lack of transparency, or the more questions I have that just can't be answered. And the more I realize, the more I question for myself, like, so where is this all going? What am I
Mm.
doing here? Like, what's the mission here? What's the purpose?
That is a very good question because, like you, I do find myself increasingly disillusioned. There is a lot of smoke and mirrors going on, or as they call it, marketing, and dishonesty. And a lot of it comes down to what are our expectations? What are we really after? I mean, do you want a pair of shoes that will be comfortable to walk around in, or do you want something that is kind of esoteric of nature that might have almost magical powers or something? But a lot of this, I mean, it is just made up either in our own mind or through marketing material. And then we get disappointed when we realize that, oh, they're just a pair of shoes.
Yeah,
And maybe this huge interest in the menswear space is kind of an illusion. I don't know. That's when it all falls apart a bit. That's when you think maybe you should build model railways or something else.
I think the menswear space is also very different from the women's wear space because it changes compared to women's clothing at a glacial pace. So when changes do come about, it's very, to me, it's somewhat shocking. Like this whole cropped t-shirt, huge pants look. I
For
think it's
men.
for men, yeah, for younger men.
Yeah, I wasn't going to
Huge,
go that way.
wide cropped t-shirts or tops. And there's a whole like world of TikTok and Instagram where guys show you how to cut your existing shirts so that they fit this way. And huge pants. I think that's been with us for at least 3, 4 years,
Uh-huh.
which is in the women's space like that would last one season and probably drop out.
Well,
So
probably not even a full season, but that is the churn of the social media as well. I think we are seeing that in menswear as well, because the need for content is never ending, and you can't keep pushing the same thing. You have to keep. I mean, it just has to keep moving to feed the beast.
that's true. That's true. Well, I'm personally not interested in feeding the beast in the way that I started this whole venture.
Mm,
I'm interested in finding like a different way to, I don't know, contribute more valuable information, or at least one thing that I have been thinking is it's a very crowded space for the brands, especially when it's dominated by giant corporations. And
mm,
maybe one way to have meaningful contribution is to support smaller brands that are
mm.
trying to have a voice, that maybe aren't as visible. So
I mean, they do have a lot less budget to give away clothes and so
that's
forth,
very true.
so they are losing on really all fronts unless people are willing to actually buy stuff from them and help them market it, publishing cute little outfits every day. And I also was not comfortable promoting brands that really didn't appreciate it. Is I stopped tagging brands mostly,
Mhm.
other than brands I generally do support, and I stopped posting other than times when I actually think I have a good idea or something I'd like to share. So I might wake up one day and think, "Oh, that's a good idea. I'll do that today." And then it might be 2 or 3 weeks until next time I have a good idea, and just slow the pace right down.
Yeah.
So it's for me, not for anyone else.
That, I've been feeling and experiencing something very similar. I don't want to put out content just for the sake of putting out content. And my recent stay in the hospital really kind of forced me into slowing things down to the point where I'm not putting anything out.
Yeah.
And being in the hospital really made me think about all of this. Like, what's the point? What am I contributing? How is it valuable? How is it not valuable? What am I trying to get out of this? And if I'm not getting anything out of it, what can I do to put more value into the information space that we occupy that's not more regurgitating of what's already out there?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, you might have an idea and then you bring up YouTube and you see 17 other guys talking very earnestly and doing a little dance and very professionally produced videos on the exact same topic. And it's just, you realize the space is pretty saturated. So, I
Well,
mean,
yeah, I'm not.
all we want really is to just show our cute little outfits and talk a bit about them and have some fun with it and be nice to each other. And money kind of destroys it all, though.
Money kind of destroys it all, and I think you just raised another really key point: is can we be nice to each other? Can
Mm,
we support each other in a meaningful way, as opposed to tearing each other down, which I'm feeling more and more of on social media. This kind of tendency to dismiss creators or just to tear them down the second you get an opportunity to, whatever the subject matter might be. And that to me is very disheartening.
What sort of comments and on what do you get that?
Well, not me specifically, although I do get negative comments from time to time, depending on what I post. I'm thinking about other creators who are maybe a little bit more off the beaten path,
Okay.
who may not look like everybody else, who may not be the same size as everybody else, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
If there's an opportunity for ridicule or dismissing them or cutting them down or giving a commenter an opportunity to post in the comments, I came straight to the comments and I was not disappointed. That type
Okay.
of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe your algorithm is has tailored your feed so that you never see content like this. In which case, you're very lucky.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
I'm very disappointed in how Instagram, especially, how its algorithm has given me content where I see this kind of exchange among viewers, and it's just not. Let's not turn a space that's already very difficult to deal with into a place where we're cutting people down or like dismissing them or insulting them, um,
mhm.
and think that that's okay just because you're an anonymous avatar on social media. It's not okay.
I think that is something that is a huge part of internet now across all spaces, all places where people can comment. The, that is really a lot of what is wrong with the internet now. And I keep thinking I'd like to go back to internet before algorithms, before social media, when people published information free. It was a something you did because you wanted to share information, you wanted others to know about stuff, and you weren't making money on it. You weren't trying to become super influencer or anything. But I mean, when I started out on the internet in the mid 90s, there was this all this talk about information wants to be free, which at the time sounded a little bit corny, but now it does sort of sound sort of retro cool, and you sort of wonder where all that went.
You know what I love that I still cling on to? And this is really going to date me. Do you remember Tumblr?
I remember Tumblr. I remember MySpace. I remember all these old things. I
I
mean,
still,
I was
I
on the
still
internet
actually
before they had browsers.
I still use Tumblr. I find it a refreshing resource.
I everything I post, I think, is posted to Tumblr. But I also have a VHS video cassette downstairs from Japanese television. they sent me an email in about '96 or something and asked if they could show my homepage on Japanese television. And I said, "Yeah, sure, if you can send me a tape with a program on it." So I've got this VHS. I think I did see it once, and it was very strange seeing my homepage at the time with my face on it come up on Japanese TV.
What was the context? Like, what show was it?
Probably something about people making websites about their hobbies or something.
Hmm.
It was just very strange.
That's very cool, actually.
So, yeah. So I was an influencer even then, 30 odd years ago. That dates me.
Yeah,
Now, the joy of clothes. Is that a good topic?
sure.
Um, yeah, that's something I feel a lot. I mean, I like to buy nice things, and I like to dress up for myself. I might share it on Instagram. I'd like to put a little star there because that's something I want to talk about. But if I wasn't dressing for myself, why would I dress for everyone else?
That's a good question. I think it's important to dress for yourself. I think it's very important to put together outfits that are very intentional, whether you're doing a color thing, whether you're doing a shoe thing. I love um, knowing that I'm going to go somewhere specific, like I'm having lunch with a friend and deciding like, how am I going to put this look together? What is appropriate? Where should I start? Should I start with a color palette? Should I start with shoes? I always like to have like kind of a focal point and then build from there. But
Mm,
I just love the idea of being very intentional about what I pick out of my closet and how I put a look together, even if nobody notices, because
mm,
I know that I did this. I know that I wanted to look as good as possible for this occasion and make it be appropriate. That brings me a lot of joy, as
mm,
opposed to say putting on a pair of sweatpants because they're on the floor and a pair of trainers and then call it a day, which a lot of people do. And I respect that because
mm,
maybe people can't afford the clothes that they wish they could, or maybe because they don't know how to approach this, or they, or some other limitation that prevents them from doing that. And one of the things that I hope that I can do is communicate with those guys who are in that space who maybe don't know how to approach it, but they're thinking that they'd like to, at my age, be somebody who is very intentional about what they put
mm,
on their bodies, and help them in some way, even if it's very, very, tiny. Like, oh, I never thought about wearing purple. Let me try wearing
mm,
purple because it looked good on that guy. And if that guy can pull off purple, then certainly I can. Because whatever small door you can open for another guy who is interested in this topic, that could be that could lead to bigger doors.
mm,
I can't tell you how many DMs that I get on Instagram where guys are like, "It wasn't until I lost 100 pounds recently that I understood like how refreshing buying clothes intentionally can be, how it can mean." Or I just turned 40 and I didn't used to think about my clothes. And now that I do, I saw your posts and it's really refreshing to see an older person kind of think about their wardrobe in this very specific way. Or I like how you mix genres. I never thought about doing that. And that
mm,
means something to me. On YouTube, also, I get a lot of comments like, "Yes, I own this jacket and I love it, and here's the reason why," or "Here are these pieces of items in my closet that are permanent, that have never replaced in like the 30 years that I've owned it." Um, that, I mean, to have a guy post a comment on YouTube about a jacket he's owned for 30 years, that's crazy to me. And it
Yeah,
just,
buy some new stuff, bro. Get rid of the old.
I mean, and it just goes to show you that there is a lot of joy in the things that we choose to keep or the things that we choose to hold on to.
Yeah.
And I would love for more guys to be able to feel free enough to be able to express that. And then hopefully that kind of triggers them to think about other items in their closet in the same way.
There was a lot to unpack in what you said there, and I've got 3 points I'd like to make, so I'm gonna hold up 3 fingers just to remind myself. You mentioned colors and guys maybe not thinking about various colors. Have you ever had your personal color analysis done?
I have not.
No. My daughter is doing this professionally, so she has informed me about the colors I should and shouldn't use and so forth.
Interesting.
It is actually very interesting, and there is something in it. And it did. I mean, I like a lot of sort of autumn nature colors. Not all of them are great for me, but other colors are. This is one that is actually good for me. But that's actually worth looking into. Um, another thing, we quickly come into all these rules about
Yes.
menswear,
Yes.
which I often find may or may not be relevant, or that people at least take them far too seriously. And then people will say, "Oh, but you need to know the rules to break the rules," and sort of, which is just more silliness. But I think many guys are just so obsessed by rules, and
Yeah.
you saw it first sort of 15 years ago. The Japanese magazines were dissecting Ivy style and creating the rule books and all this, and then rugged style and all this, and now it's sort of come back again. I find it a bit tiresome. I mean, can we just trust our own sense of taste and style a little more and do our own thing?
I agree 100%.
Mm,
Um, I find it off-putting when I come across influencers who are like, "Oh, no, you can't wear a shirt that's more than 1/3 of your body's length." And then you have to proportion out the trouser break, and then you have to wear the like, who cares? If
yeah,
it works for you and it makes you happy and it brings you joy, then why do you have to apply these rules? I do understand, however, that there is a segment of guys who are interested in men's style that don't feel adventurous enough to break those rules or to disregard them in the first place. Or their only comfort is in abiding by those rules because it somehow makes them feel like they're included in the club because they're following the rules.
yeah.
But
Did have a guy comment on one of my YouTube videos where I unboxed a tweed jacket, and this guy, I think it was 8 years after I posted this unboxing, he comments, uh, "The arms are a quarter of an inch too long. It looks terrible." And I'm like, "Wow, a quarter of an inch.
wow,
Brilliant."
that that is I don't even know where to begin with that. That's if you're
No.
paying that level of attention to a video of a man wearing a jacket and that's what you spent time on
Yeah.
commenting this,
Yeah.
you've got other problems, I think. But yeah, I'm not a fan of rules in the sense of like if you don't follow these rules, you're gonna look like an idiot. I think depending on who you are and the way you like your clothes to fit, those are your rules.
Mm,
And how those rules are informed come from a lot of different things. They could come from the way you were brought up and how you wore your clothes when you were younger. It could be the influence of media. Whatever the case may be, identify the rules for yourself. Don't rely on other people to tell you the rules. And certainly, they're not hard and fast. These are, at the end of the day, they're just clothes.
yeah. That's easy to forget, really. But
Yeah, I'm very put off with the influencers who are very strict about these things and who they kind of tend to be more in the the kind of more formal dressing, like the suiting, that kind of thing, the Italian sartorial thing, which
Mm,
I have no. That's not a space I occupy, and I don't care to
no,
occupy.
no. I would like to go to Pitiumu once, just to see it,
Yeah,
but it's not sort of that I'm very interested in it. Um, Now you did say something. If a guy loses 50 pounds, he might suddenly be more interested in clothes,
yeah,
and that's one of the things that really bugs me is that so many of the clothes we find are made for very, very standard sizing, which is wonderful if you're a proper regular medium or small, no large. Oh, how's that in Japanese and American? Because they're all different. But if you're a standard size, then that's brilliant. But it's not if you're not a standard size.
you're
And I
screwed.
hear some people talk about, oh, they get all their new clothes tailored. Um, that strikes me as really weird as well. But yes,
Yeah, I know that major brands, especially, the way that they size their clothing is obviously for the lowest common denominator, and that sizing often does not work for people who have a belly or who have maybe a larger behind or whatever the case may be. Um,
well, they're
I
short, well, they're
or
tall.
short, yeah. I often have to get my clothes tailored to meet specific issues with my own body. And I know larger guys who have a lot of issues with common sizing. And the other thing that really bothers me is inconsistent sizing across brands or
Yes.
vanity sizing,
Or
where
even just engineered garment sizing.
yeah, I mean wildly inconsistent across brands. So and I also hate that people who don't fit like a model average body then have to resort to expensive tailoring in order to make the clothes
Mm,
fit. It's a difficult situation because there's a lot of variables at play. I think there's the brand trying to make as much money as possible on the least common variations of a garment. Um, and yeah, I just think it's a tough situation, which is why I am trying to steer most of my purchases to secondhand or online because secondhand online because they often will give you exact measurements of the
mm,
garments. So shoulder to shoulder, pit to pit, sleeve length, all that stuff. So you know exactly where you stand with a particular piece,
yeah.
as opposed to guessing and then having to, return a garment or whatever the case may be. it's a it's an issue. I think with larger guys, especially. I feel like there was this period a few years ago where it kind of felt like we're being more body inclusive and we're seeing more variation in terms of size offerings. But then
That's the thing.
I feel like
I think
that's
we,
gone away.
I think there's less talk of it now,
Yeah,
which is strange because I mean nothing has actually changed.
that's true. Um, I think also it's still difficult if you're not an average size in menswear. But the one thing about menswear that I think is a little bit more of an advantage compared to women's wear is that a lot of the clothes that you buy are cut very straight, and the alterations that you might have to get are tend to be a little bit more minimal than what you might have to do to a woman's garment
Mm,
if you're not like an average size.
yeah.
So, like shirting, for example, most shirting is just straight, and the larger it gets, the wider the shoulders get, the wider the chest area gets. And you can get to a point where you might have to make an alteration, but it would probably be minimal. Whereas a garment like a fitted women's jacket could be very, very complicated, if not impossible, to tailor in a
Yeah, I
correct
think
way.
so, yeah. I mean, just the idea of taking a brand new jacket, say, and having a tailor basically pick it apart and reassemble it, it just why did you even buy the jacket?
Yeah, well, I mean, at that point, you might just, well, buy a bespoke jacket.
I mean, that would make people buy less.
Yeah.
But I think online buying has changed how we buy things. I mean, as you say, it has opened up some possibilities, say secondhand garments with good measurements. But the opportunity to walk into a shop, a nice shop, look at stuff, evaluate it, try it on. I mean, that is such a loss. It's still such a joy to actually be able to do that compared to the rather randomized experience of shopping online.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was looking at your video from when you were in Japan and you found some nice shops, and I mean, brilliant. I mean, around here, of course, there aren't any good shops at all, so there's no hope there. But when I'm in England, say, I mean, there's some nice shops. It's such a different experience.
I'm guessing that, like New York, the retail presence of, brands or, like, curated, uh, boutiques, these types of shops are becoming less and less every day.
There are definitely less and less. I
Yeah.
mean, massive online boutiques are very hard to compete against.
Yeah. Um, I really long for the days when there were a lot of curated little shops, where the owners, pick specific brands and curated this kind of like aesthetic. You could go into the shop, you could talk to the salespeople, you could feel the fabrics, you could admire the construction, you could ask questions. You can't do any of that anymore. You
Mm,
go to a website now and you look at a garment and it says imported. What is
yeah,
that? All of it's marketing, and all of it's designed to get you to buy it, like, immediately, and
mhm,
then, maybe have to return it if you must, but yeah, that sort of tactile, firsthand, first-person experience is sadly going away and being replaced by this, like, mass level of consumerism that, will get you clothes that probably won't fit you that well,
mm,
probably made of inferior materials and construction that you can't tell by looking at the, professional photographs that were taken.
yeah. And you're also buying more stuff because I am almost physically incapable of buying stuff in a shop because once I've gone through all the process of evaluating it and then actually, is it worth it? Hmm. Because then suddenly the whole idea of cost becomes real. Well, so sitting online with your credit card details already filled out, I mean, the
Yeah.
road to buying something is just so much less.
Can you remind me of the second point that you raised when you were talking about the 3 points?
One was weight, one was color analysis, and then it
Um,
was rules.
oh, right, right, rules. Um, Going back to the color analysis thing, I don't have any education on that. Is that grounded in, like, the color of your skin against certain colors and what that does?
It kind of is. They talk about your sub color or something, um, and basically you're checked against an array of various colors and warm and cold colors, and you see what kind of brightens you up. And I mean, I have problems seeing this sometimes, but since we became interested in this, because my daughter is very, very keen on this, when we're watching TV series, say, and then we can say, oh, well, she's got her colours on. Oh, that colour is terrible for him. And um, Only Murders in the Building on HBO. Um, what's the female lead there?
Is it Selena Gomez?
Selena Gomez. That's right. You're almost from outfit to outfit, you can tell which colours are right for her and which are terrible for her, which is really strange. But it's something that I mean, I ask men about this, and they're like, "Huh, colors? Huh, no, I'll wear what I like." But really, if you can wear something that actually makes you bloom versus something that just makes you look drawn and old, I mean, it makes a huge difference. And well, the proof is in the pudding. It does actually work.
Did you discover that there were any specific colors that work well with your skin tone that you were surprised by?
I am apparently a true spring, which means a lot of the sort of neon colored sportswear, like this awful neon green, is a really good color for me, which was not what I was hoping for because I wanted some nice tweedy, mossy, autumny colors.
Interesting.
Um, so I don't follow it religiously, but I do make an effort every time I'm meeting my daughter and visiting my grandchildren that I wear something that I know she will approve of, and she always notices it. So yeah,
That's an interesting way to possibly approach what you introduce into your wardrobe by color.
it can make you make wiser decisions.
Yeah.
I was in a shop in Oslo a couple of years ago, and there was this very pale young boy who was trying to choose between two scarves, and I could tell that one of those scarves really suited him, but the one he was going to buy made him look like a ghost.
Hmm.
So, being an intrusive older man with no social barriers, I just sort of mentioned this to him and made sure he bought the right one. I'm sure he was very grateful for it afterwards, although the situation was a little awkward there and then. But I mean, once you have a sort of idea of it, then
That's
yeah.
great. That's great.
But
I
it's
uh,
something
I
that guys don't talk about, so it's not a sort of thing really for men.
yeah. I'm interested in getting this color study done for myself, but what I try to do in the meantime is I arrange my closet with the specific item type, so shirting, for example, or outerwear, and then I arrange everything by color to kind of understand what color is missing, and I then think about why that color is missing.
Ah, what what colors are you missing now, do you think?
I'm missing warm colors in the yellow ranges and the purples. I have
Hmm.
very few items that are red for some reason.
Maybe these colors just don't suit you, so your mind has subconsciously been
That's
filtering them away.
that's kind of what I'm suspecting.
Hmm.
So to better be able to understand that is again another variable that if I could get a handle on will probably increase my ability to get to that final destination of like here's a wardrobe that really speaks to who I am.
Yeah, I think definitely so. Now, is there something we should have mentioned that we haven't? We've covered a lot of ground today.
We sure have.
Have you become any clearer on what you will spend your precious time creating in moving forward?
I do think it has something to do with supporting smaller brands that do have some level of supply chain transparency, um, and kind of moving completely away from this kind of um, I'm doing this because you sponsored me or because you gifted me this thing, like no matter what it is.
Hmm.
I'm being much more cautious about that. I'm sure you've had this experience where the most random companies are sending you emails and saying like, "Oh, if you do this, we'll send you a free shower door." Like, what does that have to do with
That's
anything?
so weird you should mention it. I think one of my first ones about 15 years ago was someone who wanted to sell me a no, send me a toilet, a complete water closet. So I realized I was a shit influencer at the time, pardon my language, but we've had so much fun with that over the years.
Yeah, moving away from
How
that
they
would
got
be
that
good.
to work, but as you suggested, they might just be sending out thousands of emails and see if anyone bites.
Yeah.
But I do get. I had one recently. They wanted to get me involved in promoting shapewear for men. I didn't know whether to be offended or I don't know, but I wasn't about to prance around on Instagram wearing shapewear. I do. I'm not completely shameless, but I mean, there's loads of stuff like that.
Yeah.
I get, I mean, I get quite a few emails wanting me to promote women's stuff, which I is baffling. But
Yeah.
I, yeah,
Well, that's the power you hold. I mean, you've got an audience.
I'm all over the place. Just yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess with the world as it is today, I could also promote women's wear. Yeah. I don't really promote anything at all now, though. So
Yeah.
I just like the podcast to reach out a bit further because I find that is actually a worthwhile effort.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've not only covered a lot of ground, I feel like we've touched upon a lot of deep topics that we've only really skimmed the surface of.
Hmm.
And I think these are important things for especially younger guys to, have a thought about, because it's not all about mass consumption. It's about your personal style, it's about how you impact the planet, it's about the brands you support. All of these are important issues. It's not just buying a $10 t-shirt.
It's also about listening to those that have lived longer than you.
Yeah,
They're not just unk. They have actually gained some experience and might be worth listening to.
absolutely. Agree.
It's one of these things where every young person feels they have to discover everything on their own. But really, there are, well, as humans, I guess we never really learn. So there you go. But it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. This was great.
And I already feel I'd like to do this again at some point in the not too distant future, and
100%. I would love that.
come up with some more topics and so forth. And hopefully, you'll resolve your quandaries and continue contributing to the menswear space.
I hope so too. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, I'll just say bye bye for now, and
Okay.
see you soon.
Thanks, Nick.
I just hit stop here and